Commander Ark gritted his teeth as the transport shuttle lurched, entering the atmosphere of Galaxia 3. The 15 rebels with him gripped their weapons and gear, faces set with determination. This was it, the point of no return. Once they landed in the capital, there was no going back. 20 years ago, the Zenks had invaded Earth and crushed all resistance. Those who survived the war were enslaved, forced to toil in mines and factories scattered across the Zenks Empire. Ark had just been a boy then. He could still remember his parents' screams as Zenks shock troops dragged them away. Now he was determined to strike back. Over the years, he had quietly gathered allies, training in secret camps on barren moons and asteroids. His ragtag band of rebels were ready to infiltrate the Viper's nest at the heart of the Zenks Empire. The shuttle touched down at the spaceport with a hiss of hydraulics. The rebels gathered their gear and slipped out into the chaotic jumble of ships, cargo crates, and scurrying aliens. So far, so good. Their stolen Zenks security credentials were working. Ark tapped his wristcom. Team Alpha, you're clear for Phase 1. Let's give these slavers a taste of their own medicine. At his signal, a series of explosions rippled across the spaceport as rebel saboteurs began destroying Zenk shuttles and gunships. Cries of alarm went up from the Zenks troops even as loudspeakers began blaring commands to stop the attackers. It was the perfect distraction. Ark led his team swiftly through the confusion, making for a side exit from the spaceport. Once on the city streets, they ditched their stolen Zenks uniforms for civilian clothing they had smuggled in. Just a handful of apparent laborers headed home after a long day's work. Nothing to attract attention. Slipping through the city on foot and public transports, they drew ever closer to the central spire, the towering citadel from which the Zenks ruled their empire. Getting inside would be the real challenge. At last the spire stood before them, a monolithic slab of metal and stone. Ark nodded to Rex, his infiltration specialist. You're up. Get us into the Viper's nest. Rex pulled out a scrambler and aimed it at a smaller side entrance. Let's see if these Zenks security codes still work. To Ark's relief, the door slid open. One by one, they stepped into the soaring central atrium of the spire. Murmured words passed back, confirming the building was on high alert after the spaceport attack, but containment procedures were still sloppy. Many internal security systems remained offline for routine maintenance. Their intel had been good. They headed for a bank of elevators leading up to the restricted command levels. So far, they had passed only a handful of actual Zenks officers. None had given them a second glance. At last, they were inside the elevator, ascending rapidly towards their target. Ark's heart pounded as he inventoried their weapons one final time. This was it. The moment he had spent 20 years training for. The moment of vengeance for his parents, for Earth, for all humanity. With a muted chime, the elevator doors slid open. The rebels stormed out, weapons raised. They were met only by startled technicians and unarmed bureaucrats, quickly subdued. Ark pressed forward towards the central command chamber, neutralizing what little resistance they encountered. Any remaining guards must have been drawn down to deal with the spaceport attack. At the huge sealed doors to the command chamber, Rex went to work again with his scanner and scrambler. Just need to override the final security lockdown and... With a beep and a groan of metal, the massive doors slid ponderously open. Ark stepped through, his rebels fanning out beside him with weapons ready. Inside was a scene of chaos, with Zenks officers shouting and running back and forth. At the far end of the huge chamber was a towering specimen of the reptilian aliens, griping the arms of his command throne in anger. Even at a distance, Ark recognized him. Zenks the Conqueror, supreme ruler of the Zenks Empire, the destroyer of Earth. Here at last was vengeance. "Zenks!" Ark shouted above the din. "Your reign ends today!" The Zenks officers spun in shock as the rebels opened fire. Return fire from the zinc sidearms was sporadic and inaccurate. In seconds, the command crew lay dead or dying on the floor. Ark pressed forward, drawing his molecular blade. He charged forward, his rebels moving to surround Zinks. The Zinks leader lashed out with razor-sharp claws, slashing one rebel across the chest, then whirling to crush the skull of another. But more kept coming. Ark dove past a swipe of the claws and drove his blade deep into Zinks' chest. The Zinks shrieked in pain and anger, thrashing wildly. Ark hung on grimly, twisting the blade while his rebels fired point, blank into the writhing alien. At last, Zinks collapsed to the floor with a final bubbling wail. Ark yanked his dripping blade free and stood over the corpse. For Earth, he murmured. For humanity. Around him, his ragged band of rebels let out weary cheers. The first stage of their plan had succeeded. Now they just had to escape alive and spark a full-blown revolution across Zinc space. Ark allowed himself a grim smile. The long road to freedom had begun.